So inside the ER model, we have lots of basic structures. Before we introduce them, maybe I can just show the structure first. And I can show the basic structure we can use to build a ER model. So it is the basic structures. Let me enlarge this font, and we can use now 40. Let me also fit. We can use 15 enough. Or we can use larger ones. Fit is nice. It's okay. And we can use even larger fonts. So the first basic structure we can use for building a ER model is like a rectangle. So size doesn't matter depending on how large the paper you have, right? So the size actually is not very important. And we can change the corner. We can change it to it's wide, and we can add the border. So it's a rectangle. We use rectangle to represent the entities. So if we have an entity, we can draw a rectangle on our paper to represent it. What is an entity? Entity can represent anything you see in the real world. A person, a product, a book, like a fruit. Anything can be represented an entity. But sometimes we also need to differentiate entity from attributes. We will show later. We will have some concrete examples to illustrate why sometimes we have to use entities and sometimes we have to use the attributes. Normally inside this entity, we also have a name inside the rectangle. We can type in as the entity name. Let me use a larger font, 40. So to differentiate them, we can use like the black for the normal words, and this one we can use a light color, for example. Or we can use some colors instead for you. This is entity. And besides this rectangle, we can also use the ovals to represent the attributes. We can use oval to represent the attributes instead. And we can also change the style. We have no fears anymore. We can use the border as a line. So we have oval to represent the attribute. Attribute denotes some information about the entity. For example, when we talk about a person, we may need to know his name, his age, date of birth, SSN number, and exchange rate. All this information can be represented as attributes. And inside this oval, we can also have the attribute name we can type in. This is the second structure we need to use for the ER model. The third one is actually a diamond. So this one is entity, this one is the attribute, and the third one will be the diamond. Let me see how to draw a diamond for you. We have this. It's a diamond. And you may wonder what does the diamond represent? Diamonds actually represent the relationships. So you know in the real world, the entities are connected with each other. They are correlated. They have some relationship among them. So we can use the diamond to represent the relationship. Inside this diamond, we can also type in the relationship name. And we can also use different colors to differentiate them. Like here we can use like red, we can use like green. Besides this three structure, we also have a very special structure. It's a triangle. In order to wonder what does triangle represent, you can see the triangle has some similarity with a diamond. So the triangle denotes a special type of relationship in our database systems. It denotes a subclass. So what does subclass mean? Subclass is more like a special type, denoting the relationship among the entities. For example, we may have some cars as the entity, and we can also have some other entity like a Toyota Camry. And we can say the Toyota Camry is a kind of car. We can denote the relationship between the Toyota Camry and cars as a subclass. Then we can write down the triangle represent subclass. Inside it, we do not write any names, and the text inside the triangle will always be fixed. It is called is A. We can write down here. So when you draw a triangle, remember to add the is A inside it to denote it is a subclass. So these are the four basic structures we can use in drawing a ER model. Besides them, we also have some other structure like the lines and many other things we will cover in the slides later. Okay, so let's come back to the slides. Because this section is very important and we will be very slow in delivering the lectures. So the students before may always think I'm very lagging in the very beginning. The main reason is because it is very important, the ER model, and it is also the starting point for you to study the database systems. So therefore, I will talk a lot and show lots of examples in this section. And in the following sections, we may speed up depending on how hard the materials are. If the materials are very hard or very important, we can also be very slow. Otherwise, we can speed up a little bit. But for this section, we will be very slow. So be prepared if we have lots of examples to discuss in the lectures. Okay, so we have introduced the basic structures. Then in this video, we can show some basic examples about how to draw the entities as well as the relationships, as well as attributes and the subclass for you. So the entities denote the real-world objects distinguishable from each other, and they can be described by a set of attributes. So for example, if we have a product, we can use a rectangle as shown here, and inside it we can type in the name, the product. If we have a complaint, we can draw a rectangle. Inside it, we can type in the complaint name. So in the real world, entity doesn't really exist. It has to be described by using a set of attributes. Therefore, you can see among or surrounding these rectangles, we have lots of ovals. They denoting the basic attributes for this entity. So the attributes, each one has a atomic domain. For example, it can be string, integer, or real numbers, and etc. To denote this price is the attribute of the product, we can connect them by a line as shown here. This line has no directions, it's just a line. And this product also have a name, so we have a line connecting them with product. It also has a category, and therefore we also draw a line connecting them. So besides this kinds of information, we can also have many other attributes, which we don't show here. You can draw it if you are interested in providing more attributes for the product. As to the complaint, it also has some basic attributes like the name as well as the stock price. So we can draw two ovals with name inside it, and then also connect them with this complaint by a line. And if we have lots of entities, then we can represent them as an entity set. It denotes a connection of similar entities. So whenever when I teach this section or this part for the students, I always have different feelings. So maybe I can share with you another story I have in my mind. So I like the Titanic movie a lot. I have watched this movie for many times. When I was a young boy, my parents doesn't allow me to watch this movie because there are some scenes which are not very suitable for the young boy to watch. However, I still try a lot to watch this movie secretly by myself alone when I was young, and I was shocked not only by the joy of the young Rose or by the big ship with sinks and lots of people die from it. Actually, I was shocked by a sentence said by the older Rose. So if I still remember correctly, at the end of the movie, the Rose said a very plain words or sentence. It's like this. So she said, a woman's heart is like a deep ocean of secrets. But now there was a man named Jack Dawson. He saved me. In every way a person can be saved. I don't even have a picture of him. He exists only in my memory. So at the very beginning, when I watched the movie, I think Rose probably may need to use more emotional words to express her feelings because Jack saved her life and also died from it. And later on, as I watched this movie more and more, I think this word is plain but very powerful. You know, after experiencing so many things, I think the older Rose should treat everything very simple. These kinds of simple and plain words can be very powerful in expressing her memory for Jack. And I also have one question in my mind. How will Rose describe Jack when she was old? I think she probably also have to use lots of attributes in describing Jack, like his outlook, his age, and his humor, and lots of other things she probably remember about Jack. And then I have an idea in my mind: does this entity really exist in the real world, or they are just a bunch of attributes that together will define this entity? So I'm not sure about the real world, but for the database world, it is true we have to use a bunch of attributes in defining a entity. We will show this later, especially when we translate the YARN model into relations and implement them in the SQL.